Greetings, 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 everyone. Steve, Paracords of Kindness. How are you doing today? Hopefully, your weaving's been happy. Okay, what I have for you today is I'm going to show you how I weave the Ultron Paracord Bracelet by Cetus. Okay, show you some ones I've already done. This one right here is maroon. Here, let me get the camera up here. Or the light. This one is maroon, blackish gray, and I stitched it in charcoal gray. Now, we're only going to be doing the weaving of the bracelet today. I have a separate video for the stitching itself, so you can check that out. Okay, this one right here, some of my signature colors: olive drab, maroon, and stitched in gold. And I really like this weave. This is a very good weave. This is the one we're going to be working on today: midnight blue, smoke gray, and gold on a brush brass buckle. But if you want to see how I weave the Ultron Paracord Bracelet by Cetus, stick around, because we'll get right to it, folks. Okay, weavers, I'm set up. Let's see. First things first, as always, shameless plug. This is a stitched Zawbar. I'll leave the tutorial link for this in the cards and the description below. Olive drab, maroon, and gold. Some of my favorite colors, personal colors. And this one over here, this is a stitched eccentric fishtail. Now, just so you know, this one can be done in two colors, meaning one color down one side and one color down the other. But black and red is the way I made this one. Some of my other personal favorites. Also, cards, description below. Okay, there's that. Let's see. Credit where credit's due. As far as I know, I couldn't find a tutorial on YouTube anywhere. Now, there may be a pictorial out there somewhere that I don't know about, but I haven't seen one. But this is a Cetus weave. Most of us know who Cetus 550 is. This comes from his Live Paracord, Volume 2, page 59. The Ultron, or Ultron, I should say. Let's see. I'm putting this one on a 15mm buckle, or a 5/8 inch equivalent. Many of you know I try to keep the width of the buckle proportionate to the width of the bracelet. You know, if you got like a little narrow fishtail, you're not going to use a 3/4 inch buckle. It just, the buckle's oversized. It doesn't look right. I personally want it proportionate. Okay, and I would say a 5/8 inch is perfect for this one. If 3/4 inch, probably going to be a little too wide. Okay, what's next? It's a 4-core strand here. Let me get this out of the way. A 4-core strand. Now, I'll say this. Let me zoom in and I'll show you this, because it's a basic four-string core setup. If you don't know how to do that, check out in the description below. There's a link to a playlist. What is it? Core strand setup or something. You can go on there and you'll see how to set one of these up. But just so you know, this one, I do this one slightly different than how I normally do a 4-string core setup. It's not anything majorly different, just slightly different. But I'll show you. It all has to do with, let's see, I've explained this before. You've got your core set up, then you have your cord orientation, meaning where your cords are going to be at in relation to the way the weave is. Sometimes you want the core, the working ends to be coming out this way. Well, on this one, you want them actually pointing toward the center. It facilitates the weave, and it gives it a more consistent look as you begin to weave. And that's one of the differences. I'll zoom in. Hopefully you'll be able to see this. If not, but these little knots I do, because I do my 4-core strand different than most people. I do one center cow hitch, run it down, and then I come back up on the outer strands, and I put these little knots on either side. Get this out of the way. These little knots on either side. Well, depending on the way you wrap that knot, it'll come out this way, or it'll come out pointing toward the center. This side will come out pointing toward the center. And then the other one, you do it, and it comes pointing toward the center. Does that make sense? That's the only difference. And the accent color, back out, that's a little too close. The accent color right here, all I've done is run it through the top of this cow hitch. Just run it through and leave you a little hanging off the back. And this is the way I do it. A lot of times you'll see people, they'll just leave a little tiny nub, and at the end they'll cut and burn it right there. I don't like doing that because, you know, it may eventually pop out of that thing, you know, through time, wear and tear, things like that. So what I try to do is anchor it even better in the back. That's why I leave this long tail over here. The reason for that is so at the end, after I weave the thing out, this will be one of the last things I'll do. I'll put the thread on there, lacing needle, stitching needle, whatever you want to call it, on there. And I'll take it and I'll back weave it down into the back side of the bracelet. But I'll leave enough room that I can fold it back over itself and actually get in there. Imagine if that piece was only this long and I put the fid on there, I wouldn't be able to get the tip of the fid back in there to weave it. Makes sense? That's why it's so long like that. But when I go to start weaving, I actually take a little clip or something. This is the way I do it. You can come up with your own method. And I just clip it up here. Here, I'll show you, just so you can see this a little bit better. Let me back out a little bit more. I clip it on the top. All this is a zip tie and a buckle that I don't ever use. This buckle stays on this zip tie. Now, every now and then I'll take it off and put another size buckle, but that buckle stays with that zip tie. Make sense? So, I put that little clip on that piece of plastic and that buckle so it does not scratch the buckle I'm actually using on the bracelet, which is brushed brass. Right? Okay. There's that. Yeah, all the measurements, as always, all the measurements are below. Now, just be mindful, the measurements I give below are for my 7-inch wrist, according to my weaving style. I've had people say something to me, my goodness, you have such a lot of, you know, your measurements are so big. I'm like, well, yes. I'll go ahead and tell you, in fact, my measurements are actually more than what are listed in Cetus's book. The reason is for my weaving style. Everybody's weaving style is different, and that's going to affect how much cord you use, right? Well, I tend to pull my knots as tight as I can get them and push them up, and that leads to me needing more cord, right? And plus, when I weave, I've said this, and I've said this, and I've said this to people, and I always see some of my friends, they'll be like, I ran out of cord. I'm like, well, how much did you cut? I'm like, you got to add to that. You always got to add to. Anytime I'm doing something new, and somebody says, yeah, you need 10 feet, I usually cut 3, 4, 5 feet more. Why? Because I would rather be able to finish the weave, and if it happens, and I got 5 feet of cord I have to cut off a scrap, fine with me. Why? Because it's so frustrating to weave it out and get down to right here and realize I didn't cut enough cord. And then what have you got? Nothing. Except the practice of a weave that you couldn't even finish. But to be frankly honest, I'm not going to unweave it and reuse the cord because it's all kinked up and it just doesn't look right. Neat, clean, tight. Makes sense? That's why I always overestimate. Overestimate your cord length. The first time you make it, write it down, and when you get finished, go back and change the numbers. If you had 3 feet too much of cord, change it. That way, and keep your note card, or whatever, however you want to keep track of it. Just take notes. And when you get finished, change the numbers. That way, the next time, you know exactly how much you need. Right? But always take into consideration, like me, I usually write my note cards for a 7-inch wrist, which is mine. Now, if I'm doing it for a smaller wrist or a larger wrist, obviously you have to adjust the measurements, right? Bigger wrist, you're probably going to need more cord, so add a little bit to it. Smaller wrist, you can take some away from it. Makes sense? But there you go. That's my piece of advice. I can't stress this enough. Write this down. This is the best piece of advice that I was never given. When I realized this, I was like, because everybody's question when they first come into this community and start doing this is, how much cord do I need? How much cord do I need to make that bracelet? And there's all kind of ways. You know, people will tell you, set it up on a practice, you know, weave you about 1 inch or 2. Mark your cord and then unweave it and measure it, and you'll go, okay, I need this many feet per inch of weave. And that's a good way to do it. But a lot of these tutorials give you the measurements. So, like I said, I'll take the measurements they give me, add 3, 4, 5 feet. Write it down, weave it out, see what needs to be changed, go back and change it on the card. If you know, every now and then, even if I add so many feet to it, I don't have enough. That happens. But most of the time, I have plenty, and with some left over. Then I change the number, that way the next time. Makes sense, but that's the best piece of advice right there. Note cards. Need to do a video on that. Anyway, that's that one. Okay, this weave, Ultron, it's not that hard of a weave. It's got some... You got to be careful with your mechanics, like any of these weaves. You got to be careful with your mechanics on this one, your overs and unders. Because I noticed when I did it, I was weaving it out. Here, I'll show you what one, you know, we all know what it looks like. Now, the stitching. I'm not going to do the stitching for this. If you want to know how to do the stitching, cards, description below. I already did the video on how to stitch it. Today, we're just doing the weave. So you can see right here, here's my burn mark for that accent color, that maroon where it goes through the top. I just back wove it under two loops and bam, there it is. But that's also where I anchored my gold micro cord. But this was not that hard of a weave, but I'll say this, I noticed when I did it, I got my mechanics slightly wrong. But when I wove it out, you didn't quite notice it. It was a very, I kept looking at it going, what's wrong there? Why does that not, something's not sitting right. And I unwove it and went back up and I realized I had my mechanics wrong. Right? And that was a very subtle, I was like, you know, if I wouldn't have been scrutinizing it, I probably wouldn't have noticed it. But anyway, I'm going to shut up. We're going to get to weaving this thing. This one's not that hard. You just kind of got to pay attention. I'll go ahead and tell you. This, your accent cord, this one's pretty good because you can just kind of let it hang. And you'll see. Okay, let me zoom in and zoom in just a little bit so you can see what's going on. Let's see. Okay, where's the end at? Right there? Okay, got to see where the camera gets cut off so I know where to keep my hands at. Okay, now like I said, you can start this one on either side. I've put the accent color straight down the middle. So you can start on either side. It doesn't matter. You know, his tutorial in the book, he starts on this side. So that's the way I'm going to do it. What you're going to do is you're going to take, you're working in the accent, and just kind of move it out of the way just a little bit. Okay, and you're going to take, you're working in this on this side over here. What we're going to do is you're going to find the end of it. Now I've already got, I put a fit on here. Normally, this one, you know, y'all heard me say in the past, sometimes putting the fit on there before you even get down to the bottom where it's real tight will help you weave a little bit faster. This one is one that I don't normally put the fit on until I get close to the bottom and everything starts getting tight. But for the sake of the visuals on the video and being able to see it, I'm going to do this. Okay, like I said, take the cord from this side, the one that's on this side, right? We'll kind of bring it over this way. What we're going to do is coming from this side, going that direction. We're going to go over the first one, under the two middle ones, and over the last one. Now when we pull it through, we're going to leave a little bit of a loop. A little bit of a loop, like this. Don't push it up here like that. Leave it like this because we're going to come back this direction through that loop, and we're going to need some room to do it. Okay, now, with the same cord, all we're going to do here is wrap around that outer cord strand and come back up through. Right? Now here's the part. The accent cord, what we're going to do is we're going to pull this through. I'll leave this little loop here. Like I said, it's going over, and it's wrapping around, and it's going under right here where my finger is. And it's coming up through that first slot. So you got loop on either side. Now, we're going to reach under this piece right here and grab that accent and bring it over to this side. And now we're going to take that end, this loop that's over here on this side, we're going to come from underneath and bring it up. Okay, now this can be the tricky part. Alright, I'll see if I can show you this. This loop that we created in the beginning and this piece of accent, just consider them to be one piece. Right? Now this piece that we just ran, that we created this loop, right here. Okay? Pay attention. We're going to come up through this loop right here, go over this piece, over the top of it, and then up under these two that I said basically are acting as one cord. You're just going up under them. And that's the mechanics of this. And the trick is this right here, the accent going over this piece. You don't want it to go under. You want it to go up through the loop and then over that piece right there. And then under here. Right? Okay. Now, to tighten this one up, it's kind of easy, actually. It took me a minute to, mess with it and how can I do it? What's the best way? And this is what I come up with. Like I've said before, leave this loop because you're going to use it to tighten up, or leave that loop because you're going to use it the same way with this one. Once you get to this stage right here, you take this accent and this loop right here, the bottom side of this loop where it's coming out from under these cord strands, and and there's your loose cinch right there. Now, I'm going to take it, push it toward that buckle, kind of holding it, and then I'm going to grab this right here again, and I'm going to pull it. And you'll see it tighten up that piece of blue right there. Pull it, kind of hold it, keep it held kind of right there, and then take this one and pull it. And when you pull it, make sure this right here doesn't have a little twist in it. It might tend to get a twist. If it does, you just rotate that piece as you do it. And pull this one. You can pull it straight up. What I've been tending to do is, as I'm pulling this, whatever finger I've got, if it's this finger, rolling that piece of blue right there on the edge kind of around to get it tight. Or you can use your forefinger here. This is what I do. I'm kind of roll it around as I'm pulling it toward me. Does that make sense? Now, you come back, kind of switch hands, and then pull here. And as I do, I'm going to take that piece of gray and kind of push it just a little bit. Not much. Kind of roll it down. That way you push the slack through. You can do it this way. Hold it here as you're pulling. And you're probably going to get a little gap up here. Kind of push it up again. And that piece of gray, sorry I keep hitting the camera. That piece of gray, you can take it and push it back toward the center of the bracelet. And push it up again. Right? That's it. Now we're going to do the same thing in mirror image on this side. So we're going to kind of get this out of the way. Grab the cord coming off of here. Find the end of it. Now remember, this one right here, this is kind of confusing. It's not your norm. Right? We're going to go to this side and go under the first one, under the, let me correct myself, over the first cord, under the middle two, and over the last one. All right, pull it through, just like last time. Leave you a little bit of a loop right here where my hand is. Leave you a little bit of a loop. With you working in, we're going to go wrap around the back and come up through that first slot. So you're going to go under that first one and bring it up. Now as you bring it up, get your little twist out. Leave your loop right there. Now, going underneath, right here, grab that accent. Find the end of the accent. And like I said over here, where that blue piece started and that accent, they acting as one piece. So just right there. And this blue one right here that's coming through these core strands, get it down out of the way. And what you're going to do is from underneath, you're going to come through this loop upwards, over the top of all four core strands and underneath these two right here. And just pull your slot through. And as you're pulling it through, like I said, right here, and the bottom side of this loop is your loose cinch. Right? You can reach up here with your hand, push it toward the buckle. Still in the bottom of this loop, pull. What I've been doing is holding it here as I'm pushing down toward the table. That way I can pull it toward the camera. Makes sense? Holding back with this hand as I'm pushing down and pulling it tight right there with this one. Alright? And then we grab the big piece of the working end and pull it. Make sure there's not a twist in this, because if there is, you're going to twist this cord whichever way you need it to go to get it out. And then tighten it up. And like I say, you can use that finger right here to roll that blue piece around, or you could do it this way, however, whatever's more comfortable for you. And then when we get right there, we switch hands and we pull this gray. And you take your thumb, kind of push it toward the center a little bit, rolling it down, pushing it toward the center. That's it. That's the second one. Now, do it again. Working in on this side, and the accent cord, just kind of get them out of the way. Working in on this side. Find the end of it. Alright. What we're going to do from this direction, this is the part that throws you off. Because most of the time you're on this side of the working end, you want to come this direction. No, you have to come from this direction. You go over the first one, under the middle two, and over that last one. Right? And we pull. And we create this little loop right here. Now, we went over right here. We're going to take that working in and wrap. All we're doing is wrapping around that core strand and coming back up through. Just pulling it through. Leaving you a loop right there. Okay. Now working in, we're going to go up under it. And grab that accent piece. and pull it up under. On the end of your working end, or the end of your accent piece, again, these two act as one piece right here. So we're going to go from underneath, we come up through this loop. And this piece right here, we're going to go up here. Not like this. Over the top of that piece right there. Which is coming through this core strands. And then through this loop we've created. Oh, hang on. Let me get it up there. Remember, this right here, the gray is going over to the top of this working end right here. That's something that threw me off. And we pull it through. And we get to right here, in the bottom side of this loop, a loose cinch. Reach up here, and I'm kind of pushing everything, pinching it together with my fingers, and then pushing it up, and then grabbing that loop again and tightening it up. What it's doing is tightening up that blue piece right there. All right, and as you're holding it with this hand, it maintains that tension. And we grab this one. We pull it. Make sure there's not a twist in there. Rolling it around, however, with this finger, that finger, however you want to do that. Switch hands. And then grab this end. And pull it. And you'll see, how you see all this gray right here and that blue. When I go to pull this, it's going to pull all that in. You see how that did that right there? Yeah. Pushing it up. And that's it. That's the third rep. I do one more rep. We take that gray piece. Get it over here, out of the way. Coming from this side. Remember, working end on this side comes from this direction. Go over the first one, under the middle two, and over the last one. Notice I'm pulling this up out of the way. I'm not going over right there. I'm going under it. And we make this loop right here. Take that working end again, wrapping around that outer core strand, coming up through. I'm pulling the majority of your excess though, leaving you a little bit of a loop right here. Right, leaving this loop. Now this working end, go underneath it and grab that accent cord and pull it. Find your end. Okay, again, this is where these two are acting as one cord basically. We're going to come up through this loop, over the top of this one, up here, and up under this. And we pull. When we get right here, we grab the bottom side of this loop and this accent piece, loose cinch. Reach up there with your fingers, push it up, kind of pinch everything together as you're pushing it up, and grab that loop again. And it's going to tighten that big piece right there. It's going to tighten that up. All right. actual main body of the working end, and we pull it, it's going to tighten this up. Make sure there's not a twist in there. If there is, twist it one way or the other, whichever way it needs to be. Taking that finger and rolling it, or rolling it, however you do it, however you want to do it. And notice you could see all this gray. Right? See how we can see this gray right here? Now, switching hands, the gray going to disappear because I'm going to tighten this one up now. Watch the gray disappear right here. See what I'm saying? For the most part, now you're still going to see it on the bottom of that blue piece, but you're not going to see it so much at the top of the blue piece. Right? Make sure everything's secure and tight. And that's it. That's all there is to this one. Right? Now, as always, there's your mechanics. And that's how you tighten it up. This one's pretty simple. Once you make sure you get that going from the bottom of the loop and then above that working end and then up under that loop where they two act as whoop, you'll be good to go. Alright? Now, what I'm going to do, like I always do, I'm going to zoom out and I'm going to just weave. Now, I'm going to take these off because, like I said, I don't normally... Sometimes I'll use them when I do a weave at the beginning. Sometimes I don't. This one, I tend not to do it because I try to... I combine some of this stuff. Alright, so I'll zoom out a little bit and you'll see how I do this. Move this out of the way. What I do is I do all this right here kind of in one motion. Just using my fingers. See, that's the over and the under two, and then the over one, I pull it through. I reach up here and do this. Push it through, pulling it. And I bring it under. Like how I was reaching under this working end to grab the accent, I just bring it through. Creating you a bite to go through this loop, above this one, and up under these two acting as one. And then just kind of hold it right here. That way it maintains all those loops and just pulling your slide through. And then reaching. Okay. Pushing it up. Pulling that right there. And then pulling this one. See how I did that? I grab a hold of it with I put my forefinger on it, my pointer finger I should say. And as I'm pulling it, I'm rolling it around and it's tightening it up. And I reach up here like this and I'm pulling that gray that way. And it sucks all that in right there. Pushing it up. And that's it. Now we go to the next side. Getting this stuff out of the way. Taking the working end from this side, coming across. And I'm just kind of feeding it underneath those middle two, pulling it out, wrapping around the back, creating that loop right there, and then going underneath that working end, creating that bite up through the loop and up under these two. I'm pulling it through. That's the way I do it. Now, once you get the basic mechanics down, you may do it slightly different, to speed the process up. But that's the way I do it. Yeah, that doesn't feel something right there. Yeah, there we go. Okay. I'll do it one more time. From this end, bring it across, feeding it up under those two. Leaving the loop, pulling it through, wrapping around this outer core strand, pulling it through. Leaving that loop there. And that's the way I've been doing it, kind of snatching it with my thumb. That way it's under right there. Pulling it out and creating a bite. Going up, under, and then pinching it. Loose cinch. that's it. That's how I do this. You can see the pattern starting to form. But I'm going to weave this thing out to the end. When I get down to the end, I'll come back and I'll show you how I finish this one off. This one's not that hard to finish off. It doesn't take very much improvising. You just kind of do it. But the way I've been trying to do this, I'll show you on these two that I've done here. The accent color that's in the middle, I try not to run it all the way to the end. I'll try to have the two pieces of the main working ends go down through the center. That way, it's like the accent color is outlined in the main color. Like on this one, it's Olive Drab is like the frame all the way around, the accent color in the middle. See what I'm saying right there? You got the border down here, and then there's a border down here, and it's those two pieces. See how I did that? Now, like I say, I'll weave this one out, and when I get to the end, I'll come back and I'll show you how I do that. But this one's not that hard. Not that hard. As long as you get those mechanics right, just take your time, get the mechanics right, and as you start to do it, your hands will naturally kind of get into a rhythm. But hopefully I showed you how I've been doing it. Maybe that'll help. But stick around, we'll finish it out. Okay, weavers, I've got it weaved out to the end. I've got just enough room on this side right here to kind of wrap it up. I'm not going to do the standard knot on this one, but I'm going to see if I can't do it in such a way that it kind of maintains the pattern, hopefully. Let's see, how am I going to do this? Okay, first off, the way I'm going to do, I'll zoom in so you can see how I do this. Like I've said in some of the past videos, when I get to the end, some of them I have a standard way of doing it, but some of them I don't. Some of them I just sort of improvise when I get down there. And like I say, I try to maintain the pattern the best I can. But on this one, like I mentioned, I'm going to try, see how it's like the gray is framed with that blue. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to end it where there's blue at the bottom. The gray won't go all the way quite to the bottom, if that makes any sense. But let's zoom in. I'm going to see if this is going to work right. May not work. May not look right. Okay, so here's the two on this side, and here's this one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this blue, in order to see how the blue goes up under the gray. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this blue and I'm going to go right down the center, in between all the core strands, right in the middle, and just pull it through. Right. And I'm going to take this gray and it's going to come across the top of the blue to maintain that consistency. And then I'm going to just kind of wrap it around the edge. And that's it. But that gets that one on the back side. We'll back weave it. Okay. I'm going to take this blue that I just ran through there. I'm going to take it and I'm going to wrap it back around. Right? And that's going to give me the blue at the bottom. I'm going to run it through the center also. And in this blue one, I'm just going to bring it and run it down through the center also. That'll get them all on the back side. So let's kind of hold that gray one down. And like I've said before, when I'm filming it like this, I can't quite see. Camera's looking straight down, but I'm kind of looking at a sideways angle, so I can't see it very well, so I might struggle with this. So give me a second here. Right down through the middle. I'm pulling this. Now see how it ends with the blue. It's framed with the blue, and that's what I'm going to do on this one. I'm going to take this one, this blue on this side, and I'm going to go right down through the middle again. We're going to see how this looks. Is this going to look right? Yeah, looks good enough. Kind of give them a snug. Okay, there's that. Now, I'll back out, like I always do. Just when I... Remember, we got to deal with this piece too, this tail. We'll get to that in a moment. Okay, like I always do, I put this thing under some tension. And this thing, it stretches. But when I release it, it'll pop back up. Notice they're right together. Sometimes I have it so tight I can't get it loose. But you see how much there is in between it now? Okay, let's get it off the thing. Get the jig out of the way. Good habit to have. Kind of wipe your desk, your surface, your work area off. That way, if there's any dust or debris or lint or whatever, you don't get it on your bracelet. Because we're about to flip it over and lay it display side down, and we don't want to get it all dirty and dusty. Okay, so we've got all that. That looks pretty good, I guess. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to flip it over to the back side. Okay, now, this is the way I'm going to do this. I'm going to zoom in so you can see. Hopefully, I'll get this light over here. Hopefully, you'll be able to see what I'm about to do. Okay, you got these two blues. They're coming through right in the center. And you've got this gray one. Okay. What I'm going to do, if we look, you see how this gray piece is going underneath this piece of blue and back around? So, if I were to try to go up under that piece of blue that it's going under and anchor it right there, it's going to pull it through and it's going to be up here. So we want to keep it going out at this angle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this gray one, and instead of going up under this piece of blue, I'm going to move it over to this one. And I'm going to run all of them up through there. Okay? Now I'm going to start with this one first because it's the one closest to that side. I'm going to go up under, let's see, how many of these will I go up under? Let's look at it. We'll go up under that very first one right there, because this is probably going to be pretty tight. So you can bend your buckle back, that way you can get in there a little bit better. Work it loose, get you a little bit of room, and put it through there. Yeah, it's going to be pretty tight. Because ultimately, I'm going to put all three of these cords up under there. And when you go to pull it, make sure you ain't got no twists in it. Get them twists out. As you pull it, you can rotate whichever way it needs to go. That way, you can get it all the way through there. Okay, that was done. Now, let's see, how are we going to do this? Go up through there, go through there. Well, that worked. Okay, I think this is how I'm going to do this. Not sure how well this is going to work, but we're going to try this. Okay, this is what I'm going to attempt to do. We'll take this gray one and go up under that same piece of blue we just went under. Just like that. I'll pull it out. And before I pull it all the way through, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take this piece of blue. This is going to, my thought is to kind of lock this one down in place. All right, because I don't want it to slip. I don't want this gray piece to ride up under that blue. So, this is my thought. I'm going to take this other blue, and I'm going to go up under this one and the one we just ran under. All right, so I'm going to go through like this, and I'm going to have to angle it over and get it under that other. That's my thought. Now, how well will this work? I don't know. I can get it under there. We see that? Pull it through. Make sure there ain't no twist in it. Okay, now that we got them both in there, since the gray one is kind of on the bottom, up under the blue, I'm going to pull that gray one. And I'm going to kind of, as I do it, I'm going to kind of push it down in there. Hopefully it'll kind of seat that in there. Yeah, there we go. See? And it keeps that gray going up under that blue and still kind of angled downward toward the buckle before it turns back up. Right? And then as I tighten this one up, which is that loop, hopefully that will keep that gray in that place. That's my thoughts anyway. Keep that gray right there in that place so it doesn't ride up. So we'll just tighten this one up. Look at the front of it. It looks pretty good. Like I've said before, the beginning and the end of one of these is never going to look just right, like the meat of the bracelet. But we try our best to maintain a consistent pattern. Okay, now that we got them all in there, let's give them one final. Well, I ain't gonna say one final. Let's give them another pull. Okay. Alright, now, but I am going to stitch this one, but not in this video. I've already got the video for the stitching tutorial uploaded. So if you want to know that, check the description below. But, because I'm going to stitch it, I'm going to leave me a tail here. You know, inch and a half, 2 inches, whatever. The reason being, because I don't want these in the way when I'm trying to stitch. But I don't want to do my final cut and burn and have a big hard lump of plastic there, because it may get in the way of me trying to get my stitching needle through there. And it's a habit for me, because I stitch most everything. I normally, even if I'm not going to stitch it, I still leave me a tail, cut it, and then I go back and I make sure everything's good to go, and then I finally cut the tails off at the end. But I always do this. Leave me a little bit. Alright. Set those off to the side here. Let me back out just a little bit. You might be able to see a little bit better. Now I'm going to just kind of separate them. And I'm going to just melt the ends of them. No shaping, no nothing. Just melting them so they don't fray, because these are ultimately going to get cut off. But I don't want them getting frayed and all that while I'm stitching. Okay, there's that. Like I said, the measurements below are for a 7-inch wrist. And this is for 7 3/4. So I cut a little bit more. I think I added a foot to the gray and about 6 inches more for the blue, just to make sure I'd be able to get it to the end. And you see, I didn't have that much. Got about, I don't know, 8, 10 inches and just over a foot of the gray, which that's acceptable. That's acceptable to me. Like I say, this stuff doesn't cost that much. I figured it out. It's give or take about 10 cents a foot, you know, in that ballpark. Okay, now get our fins out of the way. Leave one here because we're going to do this piece too, right? Okay. And all we're going to do on this one, I'm not going to pull it back out and run it through differently. I'm going to leave it like it is. I've seen some of the bracelets where at the end I'll pull that piece back through and run it back down in there into a different place. I'm not going to do it on this one. On this one, all I'm going to do is just anchor it up under these first two. Let me pull that light back up over here. Up under these first two right here. And then when I go to do the stitching, I'm going to anchor it the same way. Okay, now remember, I told you long enough so you can fold the fib back over itself, and I can get it up under there. If that piece would have been this long, you know, imagine. That piece is only that long, that fib's attached there. I don't have enough clearance to get up under the first two pieces. Make sense? That's why I left it that long. I'm going to just go up under those two pieces. See? Ooh, that's tight. Now, make sure you get your twist out. See, that's kind of, make sure it's not twisted. That way it'll lay down flat. If you got it twisted and you pull it, what's going to happen is it's going to cause it to have a big lump right there. So you want to get that twist out so when you pull it, it'll lay as flat as you can get it. And then the same thing. Leave you an inch, inch and a half, 2 inches, whatever you're comfortable with. Cut it. And yeah, that one right there is going in the trash. I mean, can't do anything with that. Put the fib back in the holder. And we're going to go ahead and give that one a burn just to melt the end. Let it cool for a second. And that's it. That's how I do this. I'll back out, let you see. Now, like I say, I'm going to do this side stitching on this one. I'm going to do it in gold. Yeah, that spool's about empty. Thankfully I got another one over there in reserve. I do use gold quite often to stitch. Gold is a very good stitching color in my opinion. It'll go with anything. I mean, obviously black and gold, but then like this blue, this midnight blue smoke gray and gold, it looks really well together. But gold goes with a lot of stuff. Pretty much anything. But there we go. That's what it looks like. Like I said, this one was made for 7 3/4 inch wrist. Now we'll go ahead and do this. Normally I do the trial by fire at the end and put it on my wrist. This one's not made for me, but I'll put it on my little sizing mandrel just to make sure. Go ahead and kind of give it a curl so it'll lock. Right. And then we'll take our sizing mandrel. You see the 7-inch mark and the 8-inch mark, and it's right there. Now it'll go down a little bit further after I cut all them tails off. It'll go down on there a little bit further. And if need be, here's your trick. If need be, this is a solid piece of wood, so it's not going to give. But I know everybody doesn't have one of these things. I got this off of Amazon. It's what it actually is. It's a mandrel for like metal bracelets. You can put a metal bracelet on this and use a soft mallet, rubber mallet, and put it on here and it'll stretch it out a little bit, right? But I've come back and put the marks on it to measure it. But if need be, there have been times where I've made bracelets that are just a bit too small. What I can do is put it on here and push this thing down, force it down on there, and it will stretch that thing out. Now, if you don't have one of these, you can find something equivalent. A cup. not made out of glass. Do not use glass, because when you're pushing on it, putting that force on it, it may shatter, and we don't want to cut our hands up. I used this before I got this mandrel. I had this. It's a hard plastic cup. It's not one of those cheap, flimsy ones that you get at the fast food place, that if you crush it, it's crushed and cracked. It's not like that. It's got some rigidity to it. But you could use something like that. I've even seen, I got a friend of mine, he's got a, looks like a sippy cup, like a baby's sippy cup. And it's kind of got a taper to it. And he was using that. I was like, hey, whatever works, works. But there you go. That's it right there. That's how I weave the Ultron, the Cetus weave. I'll give you one more look. Got a brushed brass buckle, midnight blue, smoke gray. And we're going to do that side stitching down either side in the gold. But there you go. That's how I weave the Ultron. But with that, I'll end it like I end them all. Keep it neat, keep it clean, and keep it tight. Happy weaving, folks.